Christian influences in Islam could be traced back to the Eastern Christianity, which surrounded the origins of Islam. Christians also introduced the Muslims to Greek learning. Eastern Christians contributed to the Arab Islamic Civilization during the Ummayad and the Abbasid periods by translating works of Greek philosophers to Syriac and afterwards to Arabic. They also excelled in philosophy, science, theology and medicine. The majority of Muslim countries also use a Gregorian calendar, and some countries observe Sunday as a non-working day. Language. In the late 7th and 8th centuries, Muslims encountered Levantine Christians. The cognate Syriac word Sahido may have influenced the Arabic Shahid. During the Abbasid dynasty, translations of the Gospels from Syriac into Arabic were made, particularly by historian Abbasid, at the request of the Arab governor. Art. Roman and Byzantine styles were particularly prevalent in early Islamic architecture. One of the examples is the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. Its design is derived from Roman architecture. Madrasa Mausoleum of Sultan al-Nazir Muhammad in Cairo has a Gothic doorway from Acre, reused as a trophy. The former Christian cathedral Madrasat al-Haloria in Aleppo, probably taken by Anwar ad-Din Zangi, featured an altar. The Aqsa Mosque has a sculpted ornament taken from Crusader structures of the 12th century in the arches of the facade. The upper double capital of the mosque on twisted columns expresses the unity of nature in a characteristic Romanesque style. After the fall of Constantinople, the Ottomans converted a major basilica, Hagia Sophia, to a mosque and incorporated Byzantine architectural elements into their own work, such as domes. This was a part of the conversion of non-Muslim places of worship into mosques. The Hagia Sophia also served as model for many Ottoman mosques, such as the Shehzada Mosque, the Suleiman Mosque and the Rustam Pasha Mosque. Christological motifs could be found in the works of Nizami, Rumi and others. Islamic artists applied Christian patterns for iconography. The picture of the birth of Muhammad in Rashid ad-Din's Jami' Tarawik is reminiscent of the birth of Jesus. The angels, hovering over the mother, correspond to a Christian type, while the three women who came to visit the mother conform to the three biblical magi. Some surviving Ayyubid inlaid brasses feature gospel scenes and images of Madonna with infant Jesus. References to the Annunciation and the baptism of Jesus are manifest in Al-Athar al-Baqiyya, where the Virgin is depicted in accordance with her representation in Byzantine art. The frescoes of Samarra, painted between 836 and 883, also suggest the Christian craft because of the Christian priests who are the subjects and the signatures of the artist. Cultural influence. Christians contributed to the Arab Islamic Civilization during the Ummayyad and the Abbasid periods by translating works of Greek philosophers to Syriac and afterwards to Arabic. During the 4th through the 7th centuries, scholarly work in the Syriac and Greek languages was either newly initiated or carried on from the Hellenistic period. Centers of learning and of transmission of classical wisdom included colleges such as the School of Nisibis, and later the School of Edessa, and the renowned Hospital and Medical Academy of Jungdashipur. Libraries included the Library of Alexandria and the Imperial Library of Constantinople. Other centers of translation and learning functioned at Mur, Salonika, Nishapur and Ctesiphon, situated just south of what later became Baghdad. The House of Wisdom was a library, translation institute, and academy established in Abbasid era Baghdad, Iraq. Nestorians played a prominent role in the formation of Arab culture, with the Jungdashipur school being prominent in the late Sassanid, Ummayad and early Abbasid periods. Notably, 8 generations of the Nestorian Bukhshu family served as private doctors to caliphs and sultans between the 8th and 11th centuries. Role of Christian in science in the medieval Islamic world. Christians, especially Nestorian, contributed to the Arab Islamic civilization during the Ummayyads and the Abbasids by translating works of Greek philosophers to Syriac and afterwards to Arabic. They also excelled in philosophy, science and theology, and the personal physicians of the Abbasid caliphs were often Assyrian Christians, such as the long-serving Bukhshu dynasty. Role of Christian in medicine in the medieval Islamic world. A hospital and medical training center existed at Gundeshipur. The city of Gundeshipur was founded in 271 by the Sassanid king Shapur I. It was one of the major cities in Khuzestan province of the Persian Empire in what is today Iran. A large percentage of the population were Syriacs, most of whom were Christians. Under the rule of Khosrau I, refuge was granted to Greek Nestorian Christian philosophers, including the scholars of the Persian school of Edessa, a Christian theological and medical university. These scholars made the way to Gundeshipur in 529 following the closing of the academy by Emperor Justinian. They were engaged in medical sciences and initiated the first translation projects of medical texts. The arrival of these medical practitioners from Edessa marks the beginning of the hospital and medical center at Gundeshipur. It included a medical school and hospital, a pharmacology laboratory, a translation house, a library, and an observatory. Indian doctors also contributed to the school at Gundeshipur, most notably the medical researcher Manka. Late after Islamic invasion, the writings of Manka and of the Indian doctor Sustura were translated into Arabic at Baghdad. Saud al-Antaki was one of the last generation of influential Arab Christian writers. The Christian merchants and the trade of silk, the one valuable item sought for in Europe which Iran possessed and which could bring in silver in sufficient quantities, was silk, which was produced in the northern provinces along the Caspian coastline. The trade of this product was done by Persians to begin with, but during the 17th century the Christian Armenians became increasingly vital in the trade of this merchandise as middlemen, whereas domestic trade was largely in the hands of Persian and Jewish merchants. By the late 17th century, almost all foreign trade was controlled by the Armenians. They were even hired by wealthy Persian merchants to travel to Europe when they wanted to create commercial bases there, and the Armenians eventually established themselves in cities like Bursa, Aleppo, Venice, Livorno, Marseille and Amsterdam. Realizing this, Shah Abbas resettled large numbers of Armenians from the Caucasus to his capital city and provided them with loans. And as the Shah realized the importance of doing trade with the Europeans, he assured that the Safavid society was one with religious tolerance. The Christian Armenians thus became a commercial elite in the Safavid society and managed to survive in the tough atmosphere of business being fought over by the British, Dutch, French, Indians and Persians. By always having large capital readily available and by managing to strike harder bargains, ensuring cheaper prices than what, for instance, the British rivals ever were able to. Ottoman Empire. Immediately after the conquest of Constantinople, Mehmet II deported all the Christian population of the city, leaving only the Jewish inhabitants of Balad. Afterward, he repopulated the city, bringing inhabitants, both Christian and Muslim, from the whole empire and from the newly conquered territories. Fano was then repopulated with Greeks deported from Mushian in the Peloponnese and, after 1461, with citizens of Trebizond. The roots of Greek ascendancy can be traced to the need of the Ottomans for skilled and educated negotiators as the power of their empire declined, and they were compelled to rely on treaties more than the force of arms. For the 17th century onwards, the Ottomans began facing problems in the conduct of the foreign relations, and were having difficulties in dictating terms to the neighbors. The Porte was faced for the first time with the need of participating in diplomatic negotiations. Given the Ottoman tradition of generally ignoring Western European languages and cultures, officials found themselves unable to handle such affairs. The Porte subsequently assigned those tasks to the Greeks, who had a long mercantile and educational tradition and could provide the necessary skills. As a result, the Saminas called Fat Ariots Greek and Hellenized families, mostly native to Constantinople, came to occupy high posts of secretaries and interpreters to Ottoman officials and officers. Some of the most influential Arab nationalists were Arab Christians, like George Habash, founder of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and Syrian intellectual Constantine Syriac. Many Palestinian Christians were also active in the formation and governing of the Palestinian National Authority since 1992. The suicide bomber, Jules Jamal, a Syrian military officer who blew himself up while ramming a French ship, was also an Arab Christian, while Lebanese Maronite Christians were among the masters and fathers of the Arabic Renaissance. Al-Nahda. Today, Middle Eastern Christians are relatively wealthy, well-educated, and politically moderate, as they have today an active role in various social, economical, sporting and political aspects in the Middle East.